Almost every single guy out there can relate to messing up on a date that seemed like a sure thing. You've had an amazing dinner, the drinks were delicious, and then when you've brought your beautiful lady home for a nightcap, she suddenly remembers that she has an early start tomorrow, and before you can blink, she's out the front door. Some guys might be likely to think these incidents are just examples of women playing hard to get or using some kind of mind game to make you work harder for sex, but the reality is that it could just be you. That's right, more often than not, a guy will do something that'll completely and utterly ruin the mood and spoil any chances they might have had of getting any kind of action that night. Don't worry though if this has ever happened to you. We've compiled a list of the top 10 ways that guys inadvertently kill the mood. Read on to see if you recognize any of your own mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, you can learn to avoid repeating them in any romantic encounters in the future. Coming in at number 10 on our list of top 10 ways guys kill the mood is their selection of music. What we mean by that is your song selection. Once you have dimmed the lights and poured a couple glasses of wine, it has to be on point, or else you can say goodbye to any chance of getting lucky. Now, it might seem like a huge minefield to navigate when selecting the right music, and of course it will all depend on your personal tastes as well as those of your date. However, a good rule of thumb is to avoid anything too overtly girly. Artists like Madonna, Miley Cyrus, Britney Spears, and others should be avoided at all costs. Added to that, if you're planning on enjoying some intercourse, you might want to steer clear of those tired and worn cliches, such as Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On and Sexual Healing. Also, for the love of God, avoid 50 Cent's Candy Shop at all costs! Another thing to bear in mind is that while rock music can make sex more exciting whilst giving you a great rhythm to do it to, be mindful of some of the lyrics. Songs like Smack My Bitch Up might send the wrong message to your date. Avoid anything too aggressive or too sappy and depressing on a first date unless you want to end up sitting alone on your couch, having to finish 2 glasses of wine. Sliding into the number 9 spot on our top 10 list of ways guys will always manage to kill the mood is a face-smackingly obvious one. Cellular play. Do not, under any circumstances, stop a makeout session to answer the phone. I don't care if it's the President of the United States calling you for some urgent advice on a delicate matter of international relations. Let him leave a voicemail and call him back later. This rule should extend to texting, checking Facebook, and any other apps. When you're on your date, your whole focus should be on your date and not on your phone. If you're constantly checking your phone in front of her, what you are inadvertently telling her is that your phone is more interesting than she is. Good luck making her want to have sex with you if that's the case. Actually, a good rule of thumb, if you have managed to convince her to come over to your place after the date, just turn your phone off completely. If it wasn't off already during the date. The last thing you want at this sensitive and intimate part of the night is an unwelcome interruption. Next up, at number 8 on our roundup of top 10 ways guys can and will kill the mood is when they act like a horny teenager. We are talking about groping here. This might have gotten a pass out behind the bike shed in your teenage years, but you're a grown man now. Quit it. No woman likes being groped messily. In fact, breasts are extremely sensitive and you have to take care not to hurt her with how you handle them. By now, you really should know what you're doing down there and how best to please women. Moving randomly from body part to body part is confusing and never gives your girl a chance to really get into it. Instead, focus on moving slowly from one body part to the next. Touching her all over is definitely encouraged. Try starting with some light touching at first, and then, after making sure she's enjoying herself, ramp it up with more passion. But forget all those teenage moves and ease off of her breasts when it comes time to get into some heated action. There are parts of her body that are eager for a sensual touch, so try and incorporate them more if you want to get her hot and bothered. The number 7 spot on our top 10 list of ways in which guys will manage to kill the mood has to go to begging. Begging is never an attractive feature to either sex. It shows just how desperate you are, and well, women will often run for the door if you start begging her for sex. The fact is that a woman has most likely made up her mind even before the date as to how far she's willing to go or if she wants to spend the night. At best, you might have a chance to change her mind a little bit during the date if things go very well. If you have managed to convince her to accompany you back to your place for a little nightcap action, chances are you have made a really good first impression, enough to warrant making a move to the bedroom. If, however, you reach that point of the night when it's time for the goodnight kiss and she still decides she wants to go home instead of coming over, then accept that decision and move on gracefully. Definitely do not whine or beg her to change her mind. It will never work and just makes you look pathetic. Next up, at number 6 on our overview of top 10 reasons why guys are always killing the mood, comes down to being selfish. If you're hoping to get lucky with a lady, then being selfish is a trait you'll have to make sure you avoid entirely. Getting a woman aroused can take a while, and patience is key. She'll need to be kissed, touched, caressed, and probably more than just 2 minutes to achieve an orgasm. Just because you can come in 30 seconds does not mean that she will. If you don't show her that you care as much, if not more, about her pleasure than just your quickly gratifying yourself, then she might get bored and decide to call it a night, leaving you all alone. Think about it this way. If you can't show enthusiasm and interest in her body and pleasuring her, then why should she return the favor to you? All it takes is a bit of thoughtfulness and care, and making sure you take care of her before taking care of yourself. Right after being selfish, being a bad kisser is a super important way in which guys seem to always screw up and kill the mood. Bad kissing is therefore not that shockingly number 5 on a roundup of ways in which guys often kill the mood. The reality is that it doesn't matter how many boxes you tick. If you can't kiss her properly, then you're not going to get past first base. Like the old saying goes, you only get one chance at a first impression. You'll want to make sure you do everything possible to make sure it's a good one. Here's some tips for when you do the old lean in for the first end of the date kiss. Remember to control your tongue. Do not lick her teeth, chin, cheeks, forehead, clothes, etc. And try not to stick your tongue down her throat, or anything else for that matter, unless she specifically requests it. If you're ever unsure, it's always best to err on the side of caution and take it slow with first kisses. That way, you can ramp up the passion as she seems to get more into it. The number 4 spot on our top 10 list of ways in which guys spoil the mood is tied to their conversational skills, or lack thereof, to be more accurate. When chatting up a beautiful lady, it's important to be careful with your words. Make sure to compliment her on more than just her appearance as well. "Your eyes are so beautiful" is a line that's been worn out years ago. And when it comes down to the seriously hot stuff, do not be the guy who keeps moaning, "Oh baby," over and over again. Nothing kills the mood faster. Bear in mind, it's good to provide feedback so she knows what you're enjoying, but over-the-top chatter just feels fake and seems forced. Remember, just act natural. If things get even hotter and you start fooling around, do not let yourself get bogged down in a ton of questions. You don't need to ask her if she's enjoying your kisses or whether your hand feels good down there. If you're doing a good job, you really should not need to ask these kinds of questions in the first place. You should be able to read her body language and her reactions and see how into it she is. And if she's unresponsive, yeah, you might need to reevaluate your moves. In at number 3 on our top 10 roundup of ways in which guys ruin the mood is when they try to run straight to home base. Putting aside the silly and dated baseball analogy for sex, the truth is you can't really expect to get sex instantly the second you guys both walk in the door. Like with most things, good sex takes time. This means you can't just hand her a glass of wine, turn on some seductive music, lower the lights, and make a move on her. No, instead you should treat your lady with all the respect she deserves. This means taking it slow. Ease into the whole sex thing. There's no rush after all. Once you're back at your place, everything you do should be focused on making her as relaxed and comfortable as possible. Maybe have a drink, lay out some snacks, and enjoy some intimate, private conversation before considering moving the party into the bedroom. If you're doing it right, by the time you guys actually get down to business, the sexual tension will be overwhelming, and the whole affair will be that much more pleasurable. Next, at number 2 in our list of top 10 ways men manage to kill the mood is aimed at those guys who constantly ask for permission for every move they try and do. It should not come as any surprise, but most women like a man who can take charge, make decisions, and is very confident in themselves. That being said, it's important to not overstep her boundaries. If she's actually into getting hot and heavy with you, then it'll probably be a huge turnoff if you keep asking for permission every step of the way. Picture this scene. It's the end of a fantastic date and it's clearly time for the first kiss. As she's looking deeply into your eyes, are you going to ask, "Can I kiss you?" Or are you going to lean in slowly instead and let your actions speak for you? One of those clearly comes across as much stronger, right? It's quite simple, really. Take charge, be a man, and take the plunge. Be conscious of her body language, and if she seems into it, then just go for it. If she seems skeptical or withdrawn, then don't force it. Last but not least, the #1 spot on our roundup of top 10 ways guys kill the mood is when they overstep her boundaries and try to manage her actions. In case you didn't know this already, women know full well you want them to touch your penis. It's not some big secret that they haven't clued in on yet. Not by a long shot. The truth is that if you've been making out for 20 minutes at home and she's yet to make a move for your crotch, then, well, chances are she doesn't want to and won't. And more importantly, that does not mean you should pull her hand towards your genitals. And for the love of God, definitely don't grab the back of her head and push her down. Any moves like that will just come off as aggressive and domineering. All things that'll likely make her feel really uncomfortable at best and unsafe and scared at worst. Instead, focus on moving to her tempo. If she wants to make out for a while, indulge her and enjoy the foreplay. Sex is never guaranteed, and you just need to remember that. Just because you're in the mood doesn't mean that she is too.